Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Dide Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistike. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 2, Hiranyakashipu, King of the Demons, text number 49 onwards. Atha nityam anityam va neha shochanti tadvida nanyata shakyate kartum swabhava shochatamiti. So Yamraji as little boy is further speaking to the queens of King Suyagya. Those who have full knowledge of self-realization, who know very well that the spirit soul is eternal, whereas the body is perishable, are not overwhelmed by lamentation. But persons who lack knowledge of self-realization certainly lament. Therefore, it is difficult to educate a person in illusion. So this lamentation is there, but this is what Bhagavatam speaks, that those who are in illusion, those who lack self-realization, they lament. According to the Mimamsa philosophers, everything is eternal, Nitya, and according to Sankhya philosophers, everything is Mithya or Anitya, impermanent. Nonetheless, without knowledge, real knowledge of Atma, the soul, such philosophers must be bewildered and must continue to lament as Shudras. Srila Shukdev Goswami therefore said to Parikshit Maharaj, Shrutta Vyadini Rajendra Nirnama Santi Sahasrasha. Those who are materially engrossed, being blind to knowledge of the ultimate truth, have many subjects for hearing in human society, O Emperor. For ordinary persons engaged in material activities, there are many subject matters to understand, because such persons do not understand self-realization. One must therefore be educated in self-realization so that under any circumstances in life, he will remain steady in his morals. So this knowledge of the soul, knowledge of the relationship of the soul with Krishna, Krishna's position, all this knowledge and the practices on how to revive our dormant relationship, dormant love with Krishna, that is self-realization. And that knowledge has to be given to everybody to make everybody steady in any condition of life. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult, very difficult. लुब्ध को विपिने कश्चित् पक्षिणां निर्मितो अन्तकः वितत्य जालं विदधे तत्र तत्र फलोभयम्. There was once a hunter who lured birds with food and captured them after spreading a net. He lived as if appointed by death personified as the killer of the birds. So now Yamraji, as a boy, he's telling another story. So this is story within the story of Hiranyakashipu to his mother and Hiranyaksha's wives, and the story within Narad Muni telling to Yudhishthira Maharaj, story within Shukdev Goswami speaking to Parikshit Maharaj, within Sutta Goswami speaking to the 88,000 sages. So many stories and the stories. So this is another incident from the histories. So there was once a hunter who lured birds with food and captured them after spreading a net. Kulinga mithunam tatra vicharat samdrishyata tayoh kulingi sahasa lubdakena pralobita. While wandering in the forest, the hunter saw a pair of Kulinga birds. Of the two, the female was captivated by the hunter's lure. So Kulinga is a kind of bird. I don't know exactly which bird it is. So he lured the female bird in his net. Sasanjat sichastantriyam mahishya kalayantrita kulingastham tatha pannam niriksha brish dukita Snehad kalpa kripana, kripanam paryadevya. O queen of Suyagya, the male Kulinga bird, seeing his wife put into the greatest danger in the grip of providence, became very unhappy. Because of affection, the poor bird, being unable to release her, began to lament for his wife. So the female bird was caught, and the male bird, he became very unhappy, seeing his wife was captured by this hunter. Ahoa karuno deva striya karunya vivu kripanam ma manu shochantya dinya kim karishyati. Alas, how merciful is providence. How merciless is providence. I'm sorry. Alas, how merciless is providence. My wife, unable to be held by anyone, is in such an awkward position and lamenting for me. What will providence gain by taking away this poor bird? What will be the profit for it? Kamam naitu mam deva kim ardhenatmano hime dine jivata dukham manen vidura yayusha. If unkind providence takes away my wife, who is half my body, why should he not take me also? What is the use of my living with half of my body, bereaved by loss of my wife? What shall I gain in this way? Katham tvajat pakshanstan matrihinan vibharvyaham mandabhagya pratikshante nide me mataram praja. The unfortunate baby birds, bereft of their mother, are waiting in the nest for her to feed them. They are still very small and have not yet grown their wings. How shall I be able to maintain them? So the father bird is thinking, how can I maintain my little baby bird? They used to be fed by the mother, and how can I live without my wife? And I better also die and this and that. Isn't it the story of all of us, actually? The bird is lamenting for the mother of his children because the mother naturally maintains and cares for the children. Yamaraj, however, in the guise of a small boy, has already explained that although his mother left him uncared for and wandering in the forest, the tigers and other ferocious animals had not eaten him. So this Yamaraj told in the beginning that you all are lamenting, and I was left alone by my mother in the forest when she died. And I was protected by the providence, by the Supreme Lord. The real fact is that if the Supreme Personality of Godhead protects one, even though one be motherless and fatherless, one can be maintained by the goodwill of the Lord. Otherwise, if the Supreme Lord does not give one protection, one must suffer in spite of the presence of his father and mother. Another example is that sometimes a patient dies in spite of good physicians and good medicine. Thus, without the protection of the Lord, one cannot live with or without parents. So ultimately, it's the protection of the Lord that is required. Yes, we need doctors, we need medicine, we need hospitals, we need everything. But ultimately, it's the Lord. Another point in this verse is that fathers and mothers have protective feelings for their children, even in bird and beast society, not to speak of human society. Kali Yuga, however, is so degraded that a father and mother even kill their children in the womb on the plea of their scientific knowledge that within the womb the child has no life. Prestigious medical practitioners give this opinion, and therefore the father and mother of this day kill their children within the womb. How degraded human society has become. Their scientific knowledge is so advanced that they think that within the egg and the embryo there is no life. Now these so-called scientists are receiving Nobel Prizes for advancing the theory of chemical evolution. But if chemical combinations are the source of life, why don't the scientists manufacture something like an egg through chemistry and put it in the incubator so that a chicken will come out? What is their answer? With their scientific knowledge, they are unable to create even an egg. Such scientists are described in Bhagavad Gita as Mayaya Mayaya prita jnana. Fools whose real knowledge has been taken away. They are not men of knowledge, but they pose as scientists and philosophers. Although their so-called theoretical knowledge cannot produce practical results. So, so the scientists, Prabhupada comes to this topic very heavily. The scientists say, "Oh, there is no life in the womb, and the baby in the womb has no life, just like a chicken in the egg has no life." They cannot even produce egg in the laboratory. They cannot do that. So there is no, since they cannot give life, they have no right to take away life, and nobody has a right to take away life, whimsically. But everything happens, protection and taking away of the life by the will of the Supreme Lord. Evam kulingam vilapantamara priya viyoga turam ashrukantam sa evatam shakunikah sharena vivyad kala prahito vilina. Because of the loss of his wife, the Kulinga bird lamented with tears in his eyes. Meanwhile, following the dictations of mature time, the hunter, who was very carefully hidden in the distance, released his arrow, which pierced the body of the Kulinga bird and killed him. So mother was captured already and the father was killed. Evam yuyam pashyantya atma payam abudhaya nanam prapshat shochantya patim varshashatar api. Thus Yamraj, in the guise of a small boy, told all the queens, "You are so foolish that you lament but do not see your own death. Afflicted by a poor fund of knowledge, you do not know that even if you lament for your dead husband for hundreds of years, you will never get him back alive. And in the meantime, your lives will be finished." Yamaraj once asked Maharaj Yudhishthira, "What is the most wonderful thing within this world?" Hundreds and Yudhishthira Maharaj replied, "Hundreds and thousands of living entities meet death at every moment. But a foolish living being nonetheless thinks himself deathless and does not prepare for death. This is the most wonderful thing in this world. Everyone has to die because everyone is fully under the control of material nature. Yet everyone thinks that he is independent, that whatever he likes he can do, and that he will never meet death but live forever, and so on. So-called scientists are making various plans by which living entities in the future can live forever, but when they are thus pursuing such scientific knowledge, Yamraj, in due course of time, will take them away from the business of so-called research." So everybody is dying, and somehow we think we are not going to die, and we are not serious about what will happen after death. It's up to us. We can prepare for that. Instead of lamenting for why people are dying and why my relatives are dying or dead or they are dead, this is the truth of life, actually. As true as death, as sure as death. So we all are going to die. We just have to prepare for it. Prepare for death and prepare for next life. That's all. Shri Hiranyakashipurvacha Bala evam pravadati sarve vismita chetasah gyatyo menire sarvam anityam yathotitam. Hiranyakashipu said, while Yamaraj in the form of a small boy was instructing all the relatives surrounding the dead body of Suyagya, everyone was struck with wonder by his philosophical words. They could understand that everything material is temporary, not continuing to exist. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Antavantime deha nityasya yukta sharirina. That Body is perishable, but the soul within the body is imperishable. Therefore, the duty of those advanced in knowledge in human society is to study the constitutional position of the imperishable soul and not waste the valuable time of human life in merely maintaining the body and not considering life's real responsibilities. Every human being should try to understand how the spirit soul can be happy and where he can attain an eternal, blissful life of knowledge. Human beings are meant to study these subject matters, not to be absorbed in caring for the temporary body, which is sure to change. No one knows whether he will receive a human body again. There is no guarantee. For according to one's work, one may get any body, from that of a demigod to that of a dog. So this is our responsibility. In this human form, we have to prepare. Either we get fully perfect and go back to Godhead, or otherwise at least we'll get a human form where we can carry on with our bhakti. In this regard, Madhvacharya comments, only Janardhan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is ever existing. But his creation, the material world, is temporary. Therefore, everyone who's captivated by the material energy and absorbed in thinking, I'm this body, and everything belonging to this body is mine, is an illusion. One should think only of being eternally a part of Janardhan, and one's endeavor in this material world, especially in this human form of life, should be to attain the association of Janardhan by going back home, back to Godhead. So this is our only purpose of human life. And funny thing is, this is what Hiranyakashipu is saying, that all the wives, they could understand that everything material is temporary, not continuing to exist. And let's see what he says further. Yam etad upakhyaya tatraivantaradhiyata gyatyo hisu yagyasya chakrur yat samparayikam. After instructing all the foolish relatives of Suyagya, Yamraj in the form of a boy disappeared from their vision. Then the relatives of King Suyagya performed the ritualistic funeral ceremonies. So Yamraji then disappeared and they performed the final ceremonies. Atah shochita mayuyam param chatmane manumeva va ta atmakaha parovatra sviya parakya eva va swaparabhiniveshena vinagyanena dehina. Therefore, none of you should be aggrieved for the loss of the body, whether your own or those of others. Only in ignorance does one make bodily distinctions, thinking, who am I, who are the others, what is mine and what is for others. So this is Hiranyakashipu is preaching like that. Who's he preaching to? His mother, the wives of Hiranyaksha, and the children of Hiranyaksha, because they were all lamenting around the dead body of Hiranyaksha. In this material world, the conception of self-preservation is the first law of nature. According to this conception, one should be interested in his personal safety and should then consider safe society, friendship, love, nationality, community, and so on, which have all developed because of the bodily conception of life and a lack of knowledge of the spirit soul. This is called Agyan. As long as human society is in darkness and ignorance, men will continue to make huge arrangements in the bodily conception of life. This is described by Prahlad Maharaj as Bharam. In the materialistic conception, modern civilization makes enormous arrangements for huge roads, houses, mills, and factories. And this is man's conception of the advancement of civilization. People do not know, however, that any time they themselves may be kicked out of the scene and forced to accept bodies that have nothing to do with these enormous houses, palaces, roads, and automobiles. Therefore, when Arjuna was thinking in terms of his bodily relationships with his kinsmen, Krishna immediately chastised him, saying, Kutastav kashmalam idam vishme sampasthitam anaryam jushtam. This bodily conception of life is befitting the un-Aryas, the non-Aryans, who are not advanced in knowledge. An Aryan civilization is a civilization advanced in spiritual knowledge, not merely by stamping oneself an Aryan does one become an Aryan. To keep oneself in the deepest darkness concerning spiritual knowledge and at the same time claim to be an Aryan is a non-Aryan position. so, this is what was a essence of knowledge by Hiranyakashipu. So none of you should agree for the loss of the body, mine, yours, others. This is only in ignorance one makes these distinctions. Who am I? Who are the others? And one should not. And this is what Professor Arjun was talking like that in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. He was thinking in terms of the body, and Krishna chastised him that you're talking like an un-Arya. Un-Arya means those who don't have knowledge, those who are in complete ignorance. And Madhvacharya again quotes another words from Brahma Vaivarta Purana, that as long as we are in this human form of body, our duty is to understand the soul within the body. The body is not the self. We are different from the body. And therefore, there is no question of friends, enemies, or responsibilities in terms of the bodily conception of life. One should not be very anxious about the bodies changing from childhood to boyhood, from boyhood to old age, and then to apparent annihilation. Rather, one should be very seriously concerned about the soul within the body and how to release the soul from the material clutches. The living entity within the body is never annihilated. Therefore, one should surely know that whether one has many friends or many enemies, his friends cannot help him and his enemies cannot do him any harm. This harm, whatever an enemy can do, is only to the body. And the body is perishable anyway. It's going to die. It's going to wither away, annihilate, destroy it. One should know that he is a spirit soul and that the constitutional position of the soul is unaffected by the changes of the body. In all circumstances, everyone as a spirit soul must be a devotee of Lord Vishnu and should not be concerned with bodily relationships, whether with friends or with enemies. One should know that neither we ourselves nor our enemies in the bodily conception of life are ever killed. We just change the bodies, keep on changing the bodies till we go back. But the soul remains the same. But none of us think in terms of the soul. Because our relationship in ignorance is with the body only. Shri Narad Uvacha, iti daitya patervakyam ditira karane susvisham putra shokam shana tyaktva tattve chittam adharayat. Shri Narad Muni said, Diti, the mother of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, heard the instructions of Hiranyakashipu, along with her daughter-in-law, Rushubhanu, Hiranyaksha's wife. She then forgot her grief over her son's death and thus engaged her mind and attention in understanding the real philosophy of life. When a relative dies, one certainly becomes very much interested in philosophy. But when the funeral ceremony is over, one again becomes attentive to materialism. Even that they are so materialistic persons sometimes think of philosophy when some relatives meet death. The technical term for this attitude of the materialistic person is shamashana vairagya, or detachment in a cemetery or a place of cremation. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, 4 classes of men receive an understanding of spiritual life and God: Artha, Jigyasur, Artharthi, and Jnani. Especially when one is very much distressed by material conditions, one becomes interested in God. Therefore, Kunti Devi said in her prayers to Krishna that she preferred distress to a happy mood of life. In the material world, one who is happy forgets Krishna or God. But sometimes, if one is actually pious but in distress, he remembers God. Queen Kunti Devi therefore preferred distress because it's an opportunity for remembering Krishna. When Krishna was leaving Kunti Devi for his own country, Kunti Devi regretfully said that she was better off in distress because Krishna was always present. Whereas now that the Pandavas are situated in their kingdom, Krishna was going away. For a devotee, distress is an opportunity to remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly. So the devotees really, they ask for more and more distress, like Kunti Devi prayed for that. She said, when we were in trouble, when we were in distress, you were always with us. And now, since everything is okay, you're leaving us. So when we are in distress also, we tend to remain focused in our chanting, in our prayers, in our all the services to Krishna. We might be distressed, means, or distracted, but the real stress is on the service. But when we are happy, we tend to forget God because everything is going so nicely. Yeah, in the beginning stages, when we are distressed, we tend to forget God. That we tend to blame Him also. We tend to forget His service also, and we cannot concentrate on chanting. But when we make little progress, then when we are in distress, we have nothing. We know there is nobody else who can protect me, who can save me. So we tend to take more and more shelter of Krishna and Krishna's holy name. And that is the purpose behind distress for a devotee, so that he surrenders more. And when one is more advanced and something distressful happened, of course he's not disturbed, but at the same time he's thinking more of the Lord, saying, and more thankfully is thinking that I was supposed to get more problems. I was supposed to get more punishment, but you very mercifully just reduced it to nothing. So as we progress, we become more and more grateful, more humble, more surrendered. And this is the whole purpose of Krishna showing distress in our lives, so-called distress. And of course, here it ends the second chapter. So tomorrow we'll start the next chapter, and we'll see how much torture Prahlad Maharaj went through. And that little boy, how focused he was in his chanting of Krishna's name, in his taking shelter of Krishna. How focused he was. It's amazing. So thus ends the second chapter, entitled Hiranyakashipu, the King of Demons. And tomorrow we'll start the new chapter. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Any questions or comments? Okay, so we'll stop here. See you. You all have a great day. Wonderful. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.